Hello everyone, Mike here from realclever.com. Welcome to this tutorial entitled Basic Color Correction in Final Cut Pro, Part 1, Scopes and Analysis. Now before we get down and dirty with shifting colors around, we need to think about exactly what we're doing when we're color correcting. Color correction is about correcting, not enhancing, not creating a look. It's about creating a consistent, neutral image that gives continuity to multiple different edits. We do this by correcting exposure, and by shifting white balance to eliminate nasty color casts. Color correcting is also about keeping your image broadcast safe, but more on that later. The first step concerning color correction is analyzing your shots, so you can identify problems. Final Cut Pro has many tools available to help us understand the luma and color information in our shots. Firstly, let's get Final Cut ready for color correction. We are going to click on the window menu, Arrangements, then Color Correction. This brings up the Scopes window. You can select between individual scopes from this drop-down menu. I'm going to leave them all up for this tutorial. Also, don't worry if your window layout doesn't look like this. I've changed the window locations for this tutorial. Video scopes portray the luminance and chroma information of your shots in a graphical format. It can be a bit of a mind-bending exercise to interpret these graphs and relate them back to your footage. So let's take a look at the scopes individually. The waveform monitor is a representative graph of the luma scale in your shot. The blacks are at 0, while the whites are at 100%. And then there's all these grey bits in between, measured in percentages. The waveform monitor is handy because it is representative of the image. We can see that on the left here, there's quite a bright patch. Looking at an image, we can see that this lightness is caused by the sky. There's a curve here where the sky meets the mountains. This is also shown in the waveform monitor. The RGB parade uses the same concept as a waveform monitor, except it has 3 graphs for each channel, of red, green, and blue. The histogram is widely used in photography. It gives an overall view of the exposure of the shot. Unlike the waveform monitor and RGB parade, it is not representative. We won't be using the histogram much. The waveform monitor is much more suited to moving images. And lastly we have the vector scope, which just works with the color, or chroma. 100% means fully saturated chroma. 0 being the middle means black and white. The vector scope uses the same color wheel as a color corrector. Around the circle, we have our different colors: red, magenta, blue, cyan, green, and yellow, with each being an opposite to each other. Don't worry about the boxes at different levels in the graph. These are broadcast targets. Chances are you will already know about them if you need to. This line here, though, is very handy. It's called the flesh tone line. If you have a shot of a person, like I have here, it's a good idea to correct your footage so that the graph runs along this line. This ensures that all the skin tones look natural. These graphs look like a bit of a jumble. I thought it would be easier to explain how we can manipulate color and luminosity by using a graphic image, as it keeps things simple. This large O has a uniform gradient from white to a darkish grey, hence it shows up perfectly in the waveform monitor, and a little squashed in the RGB parade, because there are 3 graphs crammed into one square. Notice that we don't get any information on the vector scope, as it's purely a black and white image. If I use the color correction filter to inject some red into this graphic, we see that the RGB parade begins to move. The red levels rise. Also in the vector scope, we get a line that reaches towards the red box. Scopes are handy. They're like the written notes of music. They contain all the information of the melody, but are not the melody itself. You can't hear the melody just by looking at notes. Likewise, you can't see an image just by looking at the scopes. But if you know how to read scopes correctly, you will be able to color correct very accurately. If you're still a little confused as to how the scopes work, we will be working with them in the next part of this tutorial, so don't forget to check it out.